Welcome, everyone, to Learn with StreamYard. My name is Christian Karasiewicz. I'm the content marketing manager at StreamYard, and I'm joined by my co-host this week, Julie Riley. And we're going to be joined by our guest, Leo Mindel. We're going to talk about how to get the best sound for your live stream. And, Julie, a lot of people, they think like, hey, I'm just going to put in, they're just going to put up a microphone, for example, and they're going to buy the best microphone. And I know this isn't always the most important thing to do. There's a lot more that goes into that. Isn't that right?
There is a lot more that goes into it. And not always are you going to need to go spend the hundreds upon hundreds of dollars, but you also need to figure out what your budget is and what's going to work for you. And Leo is going to talk to us about all the different levels and all the different options, which is so awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Leo. I know, Julie, you've got some weather challenges where you're at, but we're showing how, the show goes on. So if Julie drops out, we'll make it work.
Yeah. It's spring in the Midwest, so thunderstorms are inevitable. Yeah,
absolutely. So let's bring Leo on and let's kick things off. So Leo, it's fantastic having you join us for this week's episode of Learn with StreamYard. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Julie. Good to be here from London. We haven't got the storms like you have, Julie, but it's a nice day, nice end of the day today because it's 5 o'clock here. So
it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It is. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday, and we're on a StreamYard event. I think we should be drinking to that, but probably something a bit stronger than coffee.
It's a little early here still. I'll start with some water.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So I know we always talk about when we do live streaming, a lot of people think live streaming, the most important part is the camera. And I know that's not true, right? So you should always focus on your audio for your live stream. And this is because, well, a lot of people, if your video is out of sync or if your video is grainy, if they can still hear really good audio, they're going to keep listening and tuning in. So Leo, I want to kind of have you kind of elaborate on like today's topic and just talk more about like why audio is so important.
So you're absolutely right, Christian. The age-old adage is that video or TV without audio is nothing. TV without pictures is radio. So you can live with bad pictures, but you can't live with bad audio. And if you mute me and if I mute myself, the conversation is over. So we have to realize that audio is more important than video in what we're doing. But it's about making sure that your audio that you're doing and your guests match. So if you have one person that's really, really loud and then the rest are really quiet, that causes a lot of problems for the listeners. And people won't listen to audio or watch a program where the audio is really bad. So the first thing we talk about when we talk about audio is you talk about the microphones that you have. And there are a number of options here. So the first thing I'm on is a condenser microphone. This microphone that you're listening to me here at the moment is a condenser microphone. And if Christian or Julie are still there, hopefully you can hear me and you think the microphone sounds okay.
You sound wonderful.
I need your guidance to tell me what you think.
No, you sound wonderful. I love that microphone.
So this microphone sorry, Christian.
I was gonna say, and it sounds very warm and pleasing to listen to as well. So it doesn't sound harsh, doesn't sound like echoey, for example, where it can be hard to follow the conversation.
So you're going to hear me. I'm not going to change rooms. Obviously, I'm going to stay exactly where I am, but you're going to hear me on different microphones now. So we can hear the difference and you can hear the difference here. The great thing when you do one of these experiments and tests on there, something will break. So I'm apologizing now if things break, but we'll go for it. So the first thing we'll go to the MacBook Pro. This is what my MacBook Pro sounds like. So this is exactly, my MacBook Pro is here. I'd normally be talking directly to it. So if you're in a coffee house, that's what your MacBook Pro sounds like. And the thing you hear going in the background is your MacBook Pro is the fans on your MacBook Pro. Going up a stage, one of the things that people use quite a lot is a Logitech camera. I've got the Brio, which is pretty much near the top of the range. So I'm going to go on to the Logitech Brio mic. So you're hearing now the Logitech Brio mic. So I keep talking, carrying on, and you're hearing the Logitech Brio mic. The next mic I'm going to go through is I'm actually going to try and talk to you on this pile mic here, which is the one by my head. So I should be talking to you on that. Now, these are really, really good mics, particularly for people who are not used to having a mic, because I can move my head around, I can present, I can wave my arms, and it keeps with me. And that mic works really well. The last two mics I'm going to use, one just to show you it doesn't work at all, is I've got headphones. I've got Bluetooth headphones in.
Okay.
You sit there and you think, these Bluetooth headphones sound great. They really do sound great, don't they? They sound absolutely brilliant. So we will go back finally to the microphone that I'm using, which is this microphone in front of me. So
You sounded like you fell in a hole with those Bluetooth ones.
And let's do this. Let's talk cost of these different mics you're demoing here. I mean, you're talking about various ones here. A lot of people they think hey, I'm going to go buy those Bluetooth, the AirPods, for example, and they're going to spend, I think, what are they, $150? I think.
Starting.
No, they're not.
If you go up to the Pro,
which is the MEEs. I'm on the MEE M6s, which are the Pro ones, which I think Julie's on the same headphones as me, but she's only got the plug-in ones. I've got the Bluetooth ones.
Yeah. So they,
off the top of my head, they're around about $65, $70. But the really nice thing is when I take this Pulsant off, you wouldn't see a cable at all. You wouldn't see a cable at all.
And the plug-in ones that I have were $16.
Yeah, they literally they are the ones of choice. I think they're $16. And remember, the whole reason that we're wearing headphones, and this is really super important, is that my sound, if I'm not wearing headphones, if I turn on my speakers, everything Julie is saying is coming straight out my speakers and hitting my microphone.
Yep.
My microphone then has to cancel that out, and it's called ducking. And if you think about this, the easiest thing is you think about when you're sitting in a gig, and if somebody holds a microphone straight to a speaker, you know that you're going to have all hell will break loose. So programs like StreamYard understand that, and they cut that out for you. So they're doing something really, really clever. But in doing that really clever thing that you're doing, what it actually is doing is it's losing some of the harmonics. And so it's also losing that first half a second when you're in a conversation. So, when you're on a call like this, or you're on a call with, something like Teams or Zoom, and you can't get in the conversation, it's because you're not wearing headphones and you're being cut out. Yeah.
Mrs. JP and the Bulldogs wants to know the microphone that you moved around with and showed. What was the name of that?
So this is a Pulsant. There's loads of these out there. You can have a look at them, or piles. Others use the pile ones. So I'm just going to go back to that so you can hear that, so you can hear the difference. I've got to choose the right microphone. It's like fun, isn't it? When you've got so many options and you've got to choose the right one. There you go. Be that now live on there. So I'm going to take that mic out of the way, and I'm going to just talk to you. So how does that sound?
It sounds very good to me.
It's pretty livable with, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's absolutely great. And if I had run the cable down my back, you've got a tiny little thing that you're showing. Say this microphone is under $30.
Which one is that again, by the way?
Have a look. It's the Pile. I think actually this is the Pile. I haven't got the exact model on me, but this is the Pile. You can look it up. It's about $30. It needs a USB interface into your computer. Okay. Now, I'm running this through an A10 Mini, because the A10 Mini's got the connections at the back. With the A10 Mini's got because it needs a little bit of voltage to run it. You can get this style connector as well. There's lots of these sort of things. There's a couple out there, but they're around about $30.
Can you hold that up?
Yeah. Sorry, they're a little USB converter that you can get. There's a number of different models out that look like this, but the ones that you want to aim for, you need to be driving. I think it's 5 volts. It's 4 or 5 volts. So that's the sort of thing that will drive this. What it's designed for and actually I'm going to swap back because I'm going to swap back to the other microphone so I can unplug it, because otherwise you will hear nothing. Although there'll be a lot of people will probably say that it's better to hear from me. Is when you unplug this, the other end of this is the tip ring connector, right?
Yeah.
Tip ring, right? So that's there. That's the connector that this is running on. And that needs 5 volts to come in. Typically, it's designed for a belt pack when somebody's on stage.
Yeah. And by the way, Leo, just a question about that mic, by the way, because we're getting lots of questions about that particular mic. Is it the Pile Pro omnidirectional headset mic?
Yeah. So yes, it's the omnidirectional.
Great.
Yeah. The reason why you want the Omni, the other one has got a bend in it, so it's talks directly at you. But the problem with that is you've got to make sure it's on the right side of your head, and you've got to get used to it. This one, it's so damn cheap, and if you go and look everywhere, you'll see this over and over and over again. There's lots of people on shows similar to this that use this sort of microphone, and of course, unlike, if you're happy, as Christian and I are to have a big microphone in frame, then that's fine. The worst thing I find with a lot of people is they go out and buy a really nice microphone, like a Snowball or a Yeti, and they stick it over way out the frame because they don't want to see the microphone. And if you look with the microphone like this, you have to put your voice on it.
Yep.
It works if you put your voice on it. So if I do this to this microphone, you can't hear me anymore because there's like a little inverse heart shape on the front of a microphone, and that tells you where the pickup is, or if it's a different type of microphone. So a directional microphone like this has this little heart shape.
Yeah.
So what microphone is that you have on your desk, by the way? And I'm asking you all these questions because I know people they want to know.
So this is a really funny one. This is a really funny one. This is that classic something broke, Amazon Black Friday sale, and I bought a Marantz. This is a Marantz NPM 1000. I don't know anybody else who's using this mic. It's about $50, and it just seems to work for my voice. Or it was in the sale. Perfect. It's normally about $100. Interestingly, I have this is another microphone, and this one. This is the T-Bone version of it, but there's a very famous mic that this follows. This is the MB7. It just doesn't work for me. I've tried it and it just doesn't seem to work. So it works. Sometimes you find, I guess it's exactly the same as, when people go into a music shop and pick up 100 guitars to try and find the one that fits them. It's actually very similar on microphones that we have the similar issue.
Yeah. And I think that's something to point out that a lot of people don't realize. They'll get mic recommendations from people, and then they'll go out and buy it and be really disappointed because their voice, it wasn't that the microphone was bad, because then they'll be like, well, that microphone's, terrible. It doesn't work. And it's not that the microphone doesn't work. It's that everybody's voice, pitch, and baritone, and all of those things are going to be different. And each mic is going to react differently to you.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And you can look at some really key videos in the world as a music that was recorded on different microphones that you can't believe they recorded it on that. But it's just, some things just work for some people and some don't work for others. And this seems to work for me. So this microphone is a condenser microphone. That means that it has to have power to work. So I have a microphone. I have a interface here. The one I have is the pre-Sonos, but there's a lot out there. The argument with interfaces is the more money you pay, the more you get for it. It is the classic thing that people do is they buy a super expensive mic and they plug it into a really cheap interface, and that causes them the problems. Since I moved off, I was on sort of the $35, $50 interfaces. I moved over to this one. This is about just under $200. It makes a big difference to the sound. And it just seems to work for me.
Which interface is that, Leo?
I'm on the pre-Sonos Studio 24.
Okay, I'm gonna do my best to get some links to all of these for everyone. And I want to actually touch base on Julie's comment about pitch. So the other thing is, so it's not just its pitch, but it also comes down to like the room environment. So for example, if you're in, like, you go buy a very expensive mic and you have tile flooring, you have really high ceilings, you know, you don't have carpets. And I say carpets because you don't have to put carpet in your room, but you can put carpet on the floor, like a rug or something like that. You can put sound panels up, and that's also going to help trap that sound to where it's not going to, like, if it's all tile, just think about it like this. It's like dropping a rubber ball on a ground, like throwing in a room, you know, that has no carpet or anything. It's just going to keep bouncing around, versus if, like, it's the same thing with sound. If you have nothing to really deaden the sound, it's going to hit the floor, and then it's going to go off the ceiling. It's going to go, you know, to the left, to the right. It's going to be all over the place. It's going to sound bad. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. So
right.
What we have to remember is that what you're talking about, what you're describing, is what you end up putting in certain things called reverb, so that you bring in the sound of a room. So you start with something which is very dry. Very dry voices, a very clean echo sound. You go right to the other end where you would say that there's noise and there's wetness, because it's actually, you're listening to the room. And if you listen to anything where you can think about this, if you listen in music to somebody recording in a cathedral, you're expecting to hear it bounce off every place and come back to you. And when you're sitting in a room, you want that. On the other hand, if you're recording a podcast, that becomes very, very frustrating to listen to. And it's finding out. The other thing, as I said to you earlier, is it's all about making sure that the people in the call or the show are actually on a similar level. And the way you do this is to look at what the levels are on each person. So I have a meter here, and this is called a LUFS meter. And this LUFS meter is not listening to me. It's actually listening to Julie and Christian. At the moment, as you can see, it's dropping slowly down. The figure on the top above my head is a figure that says how loud they've been over a set time. So this is going to be, I'm going to reset that meter and ask one of them to come back on screen. Hopefully one of them is going to come back on screen. And I'm going to ask one of you just to tell me what you had for breakfast. This is what I typically ask.
I will go. I had a protein shake, which is what I have for breakfast every day.
So what that's actually telling us is Julie's too hot. She was coming out over. You want to aim at 24. So Julie is either her microphone's up too loud or she's too close to it.
Well, and I'm actually in the market for a new microphone, because I'm finding I'm having that issue with this particular one. So that's something I'm working on.
So it's just dropped off the scales. So that's an interesting thing. But you'll find if you don't actually test your microphone, you'll realize, and I tested on this one, I haven't tested this one because I lost the interface that I normally plug it into just before I went on the show. You need to check where you sound like, so you can actually you're aiming for about the same level. So if Christian just tries his microphone.
Sure. So I had oatmeal for breakfast.
Oh, he's too good, isn't he? Too good. If you saw, there was a little green tick next to the short term that Christian hits, which is the peak at 24. So what's that actually telling us? That's telling us that the sound over a period of time is about the same, and you want the three people who are speaking to be about the same. Now, this is a LUFS meter. This is the Waves one. This is actually a paid plugin for a Waves, but there are a number of meters out there which are free, which you can get. And then all I'm doing is in this case, I'm using Ecamm to bring in a multicam environment so you can see me and the meter. There's lots out there that you can do it. But if you're doing a lot of shows with a lot of people, I would recommend that you do it, because it's very good to be able to sit there as we were doing earlier. So if we bring us back on the screen, bring the others back on the screen. If you now flip me up into the top left and maximize me, see, I can't do that. I can't be on the back without touching. And then put the fourth, next, about fourth tab across at the bottom. That's it. So what I typically do is I do this view, and I say to people I ask them the question so they can then see the meter, so they can hear themselves or see themselves. We can't hear you, Julie. Whatever we do,
I somehow got muted. It's a day for me.
So we will actually see it. It's strange. The meter's just dropping in and out but you'll see that it goes up over the 24, 25. It's worth investing in something. If you're doing a lot of shows with a lot of guests, you will find that getting that same level will improve the people watching your show, because that's the critical point here. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about, do I sound good? But in sounding good, do my guests sound? It's no good you sounding super brilliant and the first guest you've got is quiet and the next guest is loud. As you know, one of the features that's come out in the last few months on here, maybe it's slightly longer, is that as a producer, you can go in and you can adjust the volume levels of your guests. Now, the interesting thing I find in most cases is I leave it on the automatic, on the auto, because it does deal quite nicely with most things. At the moment, I'm just going to check myself, but I am actually at audio and I'm on the automatically adjust volume.
And I believe all of us are.
And, and to your point, by the way, when I was hitting some of those peaks on that meter, by the way, going back to your point about having an underpowered microphone, when I initially, for example, got this microphone, I'm using the Shure SM7B, I plugged it into my, my Rodecaster here thinking, oh, hey, everything's going to be great. And it turns out that I didn't have enough power. I needed something called a cloud lifter to give it more power. And so I'm using,
and that's exactly the problem with this. So let's understand the reason behind this. Sure. So this is a dynamic mic. The SM7B that you're using is dynamic mic, the most famous mic out there in terms of when you're going to any gigs. The thing that literally they can bash the world about is the SM58 or F57s. They can bash the world to them. Those microphones are dynamic. That means they don't have any power in them, or they don't require power to work. But the whole idea is they're connecting, and they're just, if you imagine you're in a gig, it's really noisy. You only want to capture that sort of noise. You don't want to capture the guitarist, which is to your left, or the drummer who's behind you. So what you have is the microphone is designed for that. That's great. But unless Christian belts it, he's not actually going to be heard on a microphone like that when he's sitting at home. Or if he is, all of his neighbors are going to be banging on the wall halfway through his live show. So you need to be able to use something. And the thing that he was talking about is a cloud lifter. And that is a little plug-in device that goes inside the chain, which is this that you call it an audio chain. So out of the XLR cable, which is the cable that's plugged in, and he's got it there. You've got the red one.
Yeah. So I went with the Dynamite SE1 Dynamite. So this was about $100, but basically it goes in line. So here's the mic. This is the cloud lifter. Basically, it boosts my gain, and then I have my XLR cable running into my interface. In this case, the Rodecaster Pro. And then what I do is on the Rodecaster Pro, I then lower the gain in there, because otherwise it's going to be way too hot to the point where I'm going to hear all sorts of sounds around me. But it's so you have to kind of find what that right balance is. Like seriously, when I say you'll hear a lot of stuff, you'll hear things outside, you'll hear, any small little noise in your house if you have it set too high. So, but yeah, that's how I have that set up.
It is fascinating, because what people like to do is they as I said, what you really need to do is record and hear what you sound like, so that you can play it back and get that level. The other thing is that's important. We talked about microphones. We've talked about the fact that for on air, I normally use these sort of in-ear headphones. But you can't hear with the in-ear headphones. They are designed to a certain level. When I do most of if I'm just producing, I use these headphones.
Now, why is that? Why do you use in-ear?
Because I can hear. Because the quality in listening to these is just like trying to listen between a CD, good old CD, and your Sony Walkman. It is a huge difference. And these are the Bear Dynamic headphones. Now, these come in around about $150 off the top of my head. And there are different models that work for you. In headphones, there are two main things. They're either called closed or open. Closed headphones shut the sound off. So if you think you're in an aeroplane, you want closed headphones if you don't want to hear any noise out there. You also want to use closed headphones when you're in a noisy office, so that or in an office so nobody else can hear you. The downside of closed headphones is your head gets hot, because you've basically gone and locked your ears in a sealed environment. So you get open headphones or open back headphones, which enable the air to flow. These, which I found work for me, are semi-closed. Occasionally I get a little bit warm in them, but I can have these on all day and really they work really, really well. So it's only when I'm on a show where I'm actually presenting that I would take them off and I'll put the in-ears in.
That's awesome. James is asking, the Cloud Lifter versus Phantom Power, are they synonymous?
No. The reason why, so this, which is this microphone needs phantom power to power it. So the yeah.
Because let's take it one step back. Can you tell people, okay, so we all know this, but what is a Cloud Lifter and what is phantom power?
Yeah.
Okay. So the two different types of microphones, the condenser microphone, this type of condenser microphone has electronics in it, and the electronics require to be powered up. So you push something called phantom power. Typically that phantom power is 48 volts, somewhere around there. So you'll see on a mixer, you'll see something that says 48V, and you're pushing 48 volts down the cable to the microphone, basically to give it power. For a dynamic microphone, the one that Christian is showing or is using doesn't have that requirement. And it works on just the interface that's in there. But the problem is with it, as we said, that's going to have a much lower volume of information coming out. So the way you want to do it is you want to capture the information as close as you can to the microphone head, as Christian has, and then you put a lifter, which then pushes the gain of that information that it pushes down the cable. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was perfect. Next up, we have Moderator 148 said, I'm a co-host on my friend's podcast and use my iPhone. People can't hear me well. Any recommendation on what you recommend for an iPhone microphone?
So this is a really long discussion about this, particularly for what do you use to go into Clubhouse. So we could go into that in a bit of detail, but we won't go into too much. But this is an iRig, and an iRig allows you to plug into the headphone socket on an iPhone. So you need that little white connector that came with it, and then you can plug any microphone and any headphone set into your iPhone. So this is the iRig 2. I'm showing this. There are lots of other ways of doing it. So there are other ways where you can get things like USB connectors for iPhones. So that will plug straight in and give you a USB out. That will work for a lot of applications, but the platform I just mentioned, it doesn't work for.
And the other question I would have on this also, so they said they're using it on a mobile phone. Moderator 148, are you joining a StreamYard broadcast on mobile? Because that's another question that also kind of comes into this. So like if you're gonna, for example, be streaming to StreamYard, then the external mic doesn't, like, you can't just plug a mic in and have the iPhone, for example, you recognize that, because then when you go into the browser is going to default you back to the built-in mic.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, yeah, go ahead, Leo.
Is it really? I mean, so in one of my things that I'm hugely involved in at the moment is houses of worship and how they're going to go back to hybrid services. Video is like one of those things where it's either on or off. It's literally, you see it, it's working. If you know it, you can visually see it. Audio is never like that. Audio, we're listening to it and we're going, can we hear you? I can't hear you. You don't. Very rarely do you see on a call can you turn on your camera, but you always literally start a call with, could you turn on your mic? You're muted, and it is a big problem with audio to be able to hear, because naturally we're not used to seeing meters. We're not used to actually looking to see what our volume looks like. And it is something that I know that has been flagged as a request, and has been even talked about in the in the town hall in StreamYard about how to have some sort of metering so that we can see what the audio sounds like, so you can actually visually see the representation of what you and your guests look like in terms of volume levels.
Yeah, it's something that's definitely been discussed internally. I love this comment from Bernadine, who said, when the gain is high on the Blue Yeti that I use, you hear the TV in the room down the hall through closed doors. High gain is no joke. And I just tend to have that problem with the Blue Yeti in general, even when my gain is all the way down. That microphone is just very sensitive. And that's where I think my higher audio issues come in with, is that I'm in the process of upgrading to a new one.
I can say one thing that with the Blue Yeti, where I found it to be absolutely brilliant, when you have somebody who's playing guitar, and they've got guitar and they're playing with a Blue Yeti, it can sound super warm and super really nice, because it's picking, as we just talked about, it's picking up the room, it's picking everything up. And when you're singing, it's a very, very different acoustic sound to a voice.
The other day I noticed,
it sounds super great.
At the very beginning of one of my lives, while I had the welcome screen on, you can hear birds chirping from outside. And I just had to chuckle, because I was like, it was completely silent and you can just hear the birds chirping. So
I think there was a town hall once where Dan was having a tree cut down outside, or somebody was near that, and you could hear it through, you had everything closed and you can hear them soaring away at a tree outside.
And I've had similar situations where the gain was too high, and like I could literally hear conversations that like kids were having outside the house. They were like, it sounded like they were whispering, but it was like, hey, I can hear everything that they're saying. So yeah, definitely make sure you check the gain. Now, speaking of the Blue Yeti, by the way, Leo, so should people have more than one microphone? Like a lot of people, they buy one microphone and they try to use it for everything. Is there a good universal mic, or should they, maybe have a couple different mics that they invest in?
I think it's the same question of why, whenever I'm on a call with somebody who's a musician, do they have 5 guitars hanging up behind them? They just, it's an instrument. A microphone is an instrument. It does certain things. It works in a certain way. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it doesn't. I can take this microphone. So up until now, where I was before, I had this microphone on the side and it worked really, really well for me in that position. Most people don't have it orientated that way, but they work that way. It just depends on what works for you. And I'm hopefully, we can all get back into shops and do some tests. Try it out. You do need to hear different microphones.
Yes, that
would don't have to be super expensive. And in fact, the argument is a really super expensive microphone just may not work for you. It just may not work.
Or you may be able to get the exact same quality for a fraction of the price. And so then there's no need to go with the super expensive if you can save your money.
Well, I would say though, this is actually one of those areas where there's definitely jumps.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of okay $30 microphones out there. There's a lot out there. They're a damn sight better than what you're getting off your MacBook or your PC. But they're okay. Then you jump up to another layer, and then once you go past that, it's like speakers on a hi-fi system. You go to one level, you go to this, and then it goes into the stratosphere for things that you're just like, whoa, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And sometimes it just doesn't work for you.
This is a pretty simple answer here. So I only have 2 USB ports on my laptop, and I need 3. Can anything be done about that? And that is an easy one.
Yeah. It's easy. Don't drill a hole and try and add another one. That won't work.
Definitely don't recommend that.
So there is a lot of things you can do, and there's a lot of things that actually cause you problems. And this is actually a problem I'm suffering from at the moment, which I'm just about to fix. So this is the typical thing that you're looking at. This is a USB-C to USB converter. So as you can see, this one will convert. This gives me USB-C on this end. It gives me HDMI and a number of other ports, including Ethernet. One of these on a MacBook or on a PC with USB-C is fine. The problem is when you're trying to add a couple of these on, the bus width on the USB-C isn't good enough. And so the solution, which I've got plugged in, and I literally got it earlier today. I wonder if I can show the box. I could show the box and not the actual thing. Is the TS3 Plus, this one here, the Cool Digit one, and everybody recommends this same box. And what this does is this is a Thunderbolt connection. So if your MacBook has got Thunderbolt or your PC has got Thunderbolt, it does that connection rather than USB. And the reason you do this is otherwise your USB bus on your MacBook gets maxed out. So that's how you do it. And that gives you all your connections. But I need new cables on my monitors, which is why I'm getting a delay. You're noticing a delay. That will be gone tomorrow.
Yeah. Bernadine, I apologize. I am having really bad storms here where I live. And so my power has been flickering in and out. My internet is in and out. So it's the best I got today. And it's the show.
I tell you though, your internet may be flickering out, but you're still a better picture than me and Christian.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's just one of those days where, we're just going to roll with it.
So Leo, which Cal Digit Thunderbolt dock is that you're using? I have one as well coming, but which one is that?
That's the TS3. That's the TS3.
Yeah.
So literally, I went round and round and round and looked at everything under the sun, and this turns out to be the one that everybody I ever come across recommends.
And the other thing I want to kind of point out about that, so for example, I have a USB-C hub basically as well. And, to your point, like, yes, you have to be very careful about how much stuff you plug in, because even though it has, like 15 ports, for example, on the ones that are, the hub that you can plug in, those, they only support so much. So for example, if you're plugging a mic in and a camera, sometimes the devices, they don't like being plugged into a hub. Other times, if you plug in too much, it's overload. It's like overloading a circuit breaker, overloading a surge protector, any of that kind of stuff. But the thing about, and you're going to notice this when you look at the price of these things. So when you buy a hub and a hub is like $60 or $50, you're shopping on price, but you have to think about it long-term. So when you get a Thunderbolt dock, the way those work is they actually have separate power. So they have an outlet power that they plug into an outlet. And so then they're going to be able to have enough power to support that back to your laptop. Whereas the other one is one cable, which doesn't have any power whatsoever to it. So it's going to, at some point, if you plug too much stuff in, you may even notice your battery will start to drain. It's because your computer is trying to regulate things and it can't because there's not enough power. So when you look at the Thunderbolt dock, it's $250, but it's $250 for a reason. It does a lot more, and it has the actual power supply. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
And that's mine that I use actually will pop up a warning that will say, unplug something. You've plugged in too much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been on live shows with my MacBook, and when I've got too many things plugged in, and I'm watching my battery while I'm live going down and down and down and down, and you're like, there's nothing you can do here. It's like we're going to run out of road in a minute because this show's going to continue, and I'm now down to, and as anybody will know, it's a classic thing that we find. There's two things that we also say on every show, which we do, which is please plug in to the power, because people, but my battery lasts for ages. Your battery lasts ages when you're watching Netflix. It doesn't last very long when you're streaming. Right. And it's also turn off your Wi-Fi and go in cable. That is probably the biggest thing to improve both video and sound, is to not be using wireless in the chain anywhere.
Yeah,
so I see we've got a question. Yep, fire away.
He was asking about large condenser microphones, XLR and USB.
So there's lots of that. I mean, this is a really interesting thing that's changed. For me, this weekend marks the anniversary weekend of my last live event in person. And I'm sure everybody else is coming up to a similar thing. So this Sunday was the last one I did. A year ago, to try and get some of this stuff, we went from two different things. First of all, we went to a complete shortage, which is what happened middle of last year. But what we've now gone into is a massive growth in the products that are out there. So Shure came out with the USB versions of their microphones, which is a huge move forward, because you don't need the interface to get the same microphone capsule. So the bit inside the microphone is typically referred to as a capsule, and the capsule in all of those Shure microphones that we've talked about is literally the same capsule in the dynamic microphones. And they've now come out with that microphone that Christian is using, but it's got a USB plug on the bottom of it. I don't know what it sounds like. I haven't actually played with one myself. I don't know if Christian has. I think Ross has got one, but I may be wrong. But is Ross using one or not?
The same one I have, actually. Yeah, the MV7 is the one that Leo is referring to. Basically, it's the little brother to the SM7B. It adds USB and it has an XLR connection. So the good thing about that is you can run it off of just USB. And if you decide you do want to upgrade to an interface for XLR, you could then plug it into an interface with the XLR connection there. So that's something else to keep in mind buying mics.
Does it have a lifter in it then?
No, it still needs it. Nope, still needs it.
Even what about on USB?
It needs something. From in my experience with it's been really low using it. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's a good mic. It's from a price standpoint, it's about $150 less, but it still needs some additional power to get it to work properly.
I think this is the classic thing with this, and microphones is a really good example of that technology, where if you when you're starting, going up to that $250 microphone isn't necessarily going to give you the sound you want. And not least because people don't know how to put their head near a microphone. And, and as I was saying, I'm putting this in. I hopefully have plugged this microphone back in. This is going to be the interesting thing. Hopefully you're going to tell me, Christian, if you can, and Julie, if you can still hear me, because I'm going to try and go back to this mic. So are you still able to hear me?
Yep. We can hear you
Right.
fine.
On that $30 microphone now. And as I said to you before, because I can sit back and do this and be out of focus and still be heard, or I can sit forward, which I just can't do with that other microphone. It's a pretty useful microphone for a lot of people. And the other one that we recommend, and I haven't got one to hand, is a lapel microphone that you sort of put in the middle of your chest, and you pin that on. The trick, you may have seen this, you may look at them and you say, why do they always have the microphone pointing downwards? If you ever watch on TV, particularly the BBC, they have the microphone pointing downwards. The reason they have that is because you don't then hear the breathing when somebody's just breathing and not talking. But you have about the same sound, because both of these and this one, they're omnidirectional. They're going all the way around.
That makes sense. We have, when entering the StreamYard broadcast, do you recommend asking your guests to turn off echo if they're using a mic and a headphone?
I will test it. The thing I always do in shows, and I've always, we have a tech test a number of days before to check everything is working, and we request guests are on a minimum of half an hour before, so that we can then sit there and have our test done. I bring up the microphone thing so they can hear themselves. We have 5 minutes. If you put 5-minute window at the beginning of your show when you're not doing anything between all your tech tests and going live, you'll have a much better show.
Can you kind of walk through that process, by the way, for us? So I know what you do, and I think Julie does as well. But for our viewers, what is a typical, when you say like, okay, they arrive minimum 30 minutes ahead of time or a couple of days, when might you have them arrive a couple of days ahead of time? When might you have them arrive, 30 minutes ahead of time? And what is that actual process look like? I don't know.
Okay, so Yeah, we have a checklist. I haven't got it to hand, but I'm going to go through it and tell you what we typically do. So
Sure.
we normally do it a number of days before. The first thing that we will ask them is, are you in the room that you're going to be in? Is this camera pointing at where you're going to be? We then always, the first thing we do is we will bring them up and then we'll go through the cam mic cogwheel at the bottom of the screen and ask them to move over to 720p. So at the moment, I'm going to change myself. I'm going to go directly to my my camera, which I'm not on at the moment. So just give me a second. So I'm going to bounce to there, and and at the moment I'm on 1080. So I'm going to drop it to 4. You should see, hopefully, if I go to low definition, I'm hopeful you're going to see a bit of a difference in the camera. So you'll see that's the lowest definition that StreamYard deliver, and we push them up to the high definition. Maybe it'll be easier to show you in, I'm going to go over to the Logitech Brio, which is a slightly different view. If it will boot, it won't come up. Don't worry, I'm going to go back to the other one. So it's not going to come through.
So we're going to have, I think Leo's making some adjustments here. And so this is the thing. This is a big reason why you have people show up ahead of time, whether it's a day or two in advance to kind of walk through their system, or, if you have them show up for a minimum of 30 minutes before a stream, it's because, for example, if you've been opening, you've been like, we're all working from home, for example. So we're in meetings, we're on a lot of different calls. We're in different platforms, for example, depending on the company you're working with. And so in his case, let's say he happened to be using StreamYard and then someone said, hey, join me in this Google Meet. So then they went over to Google Meet and then try to come back. Your camera may not recognize that you've done that. And so it's still trying to, Google, for example, can lock your camera. So the only way you fix that is what? It's a system restart. It's quitting Google Chrome, so there's work you have to do on your end to get things back to normal. And so if you just show up like 10 minutes ahead of time, that's not good enough, because you have to test things. It doesn't matter if you've done this 100 times or you've done it, the first time. Your 100th time, you may have an issue. It could be the cable, it could be the system. Maybe you did a system update. So you need to make sure that you arrive ahead of time and arrive before your guest. And then also make sure your guests are arriving ahead of time. I know, Julie, we always try to make sure that our guests are arriving ahead of time so that we can prep them on things. But it's also just being common courtesy as a guest to appear on somebody's live stream ahead of time. Don't just assume.
Well, and you don't just want to pop in and go, hi, okay, we're live. You need to start to have a conversation. Oftentimes your guest is somebody you may have only chatted with in Messenger or in an email. And so you need to start to develop a little bit of a rapport before you go on camera. And the other thing is that I will always say is it is not a matter of if something will go wrong. It is a matter of when. It is a guarantee, whether it's thunderstorms outside that are messing with your internet and your electricity, or just a crazy, other tech glitch. Maybe you were demoing something like Leo was, and it locked the system up. Things happen, and the guarantee in live streaming is it will go wrong at some point.
Yeah. And, I want to touch base on headphones, by the way. We've got a lot of questions on headphones, and I see Leo's trying to get back in here.
Yeah.
So I think he had to probably do a restart. So let me find a couple of these. So somebody was asking about your headphones. I think they said like, hey, you don't have headphones on.
I do have headphones on. So they are clear. They go over the ear and back behind. So I've got one in either ear, but you don't see them. You don't know they exist. They are me. Let's see. So MEE. I ordered them on Amazon. So if you look up, I don't even remember what I looked up, but I think they were recommended to me by somebody else. So I typed in me, and I believe they're like the sport model or something like that. And they're clear. And they were like $16, $17. Super affordable. The only thing I recommend with them is the cord on them is not long enough to reach into your headphone. You will be like locked into no movement. And even I still need to order a little bit longer cord. But what I did was I just ordered an extension cable that is got the headphone jack to the other end of the headphones that I'm using, and that way I could extend the cable out.
One of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
the
I
only
think
thing
that's
I happen to have a problem with is I get caught on my chair. My chair has a split in the middle of it, and so the cable gets stuck in my chair. So that's my only other issue. I got to figure a better process for that out.
But there's the M6 sweatproof sport headphones, I think.
I believe so. That sounds right.
Yeah, so I'll put a link to that one. So that's an option that Julie uses. Now, I'm also wearing headphones. Maybe you can tell, I'm not sure. So I'm running, these are, I think these are Sennheisers, and basically I'm doing the same thing. So I'm running these down my back. I don't know if everyone can see this. They literally run down my back. I then put a sweatshirt, for example, over top, but it's running down my back. And then I have a long extension cable so that I can move around, for example. Otherwise, if you do move this way or that, you're going to feel it. You saw me doing this at the beginning. You're going to see it. It's going to pull on your back. So those are what I'm using. I think I paid $60 or $70 for them. And Leo, we'll bring you here in a second. And so those are wired. Now I know we had another question here, and we'll bring Leo in, and I want to answer this question as well. So Leo, it's good to have you back.
Yeah. And that, when you play around in the middle of a show and you're literally, you had the fans go super whatever, and the Mac went boop.
We said it's not a matter of if something will happen. It's a matter of when. So, and the show just keeps going.
Never do it in a show. Never do it in a show.
No.
Yeah.
To that point, that's also where, like, if you have multiple cameras set up, for example, in StreamYard, you can set up a camera like this one, and then you can have, maybe a mobile phone set up, and you can switch between those from your dashboard. But for those who do want to take it to another level, you can use a physical switcher, such as an A10 Mini Pro from Blackmagic. That allows me to just turn everything into one product, push a button, and easily switch between a camera if I want to do that. Julie, I want to also go to the question that people had about headphones, because Leo, I know we kind of talked about how we were set up. People were asking if they should go with, you recommend should you go with true wireless headphones? What's your take on this?
I'm not a fan of anything wireless because, again, it's not a matter of if it will go wrong. It's a matter of when. That's my personal take. Whether it's the battery shorts out or the Bluetooth connection shorts out, there is always that extra layer of something that can go wrong. When you're wired in, it just reduces those problems.
And to add, going further to what Julie's saying, is that wireless microphone or wireless earpieces are actually using, in a lot of cases, the same bandwidth as a lot of other things that are wireless. So you're just adding to that congestion. Or they're using Bluetooth, and there's other things that are causing it. One of the worst experiences we get with microphones is people with the Apple EarPods, because they just cause us a lot of problems. The microphone on them is really, really poor. The headphone side is great, and they sound really good, but you don't realize how bad you sound on them. And that has caused us a lot of problems in the past, particularly when people are going, but I've spent a fortune on this. And you're going, yeah, I know, but we can't hear you.
Yeah.
And headphones, they have different purposes, as well. So, for example, if you're going to be working out, you don't need the most expensive headphones to be working out, but you do need things that, like, for example, wireless makes more sense if I'm working out and I'm moving around, because I don't want to be, remember how, I guess back in the day, people would have an iPod and they'd be, having to run with an iPod and a pair of headphones, and even on a treadmill, that makes it even worse. So you had that kind of situation, right? And so wireless headphones make a lot of sense in that sense. If you're, for example, at a big conference, they're using a Sennheiser mic pack. And so they have, they have certain frequencies that they tune to, so it's still able to be wireless, but it's a much more expensive setup. Going back to the point about wireless as well. So I'm using wired headphones, and to Julie's point, you mentioned, I think, about the battery life. I also have a pair of these. These are Shure wireless. They're literally the same. They're in-ear monitors, basically. And so I have a pair of these. Let's get this focused here. So I've got these, and here's the thing. I don't connect these to anything else but my computer. And the reason I do that is because, to Julie's point as well, if you connect this to like a phone at some point, and then you connect to an iPad and a computer, and you're around your devices, here's what could potentially happen. The battery could run out. These have a good battery, but it could run out. Maybe you forgot to charge it. But what also can happen is this could switch to your phone or your iPad or your laptop. And then you're like, okay, well, which device am I on? So I keep a spare pair of headphones around, and they're only just for my laptop. I don't connect them to anything else. So I try to avoid those issues.
I've had that issue with my AirPods because I'll use them for various things, and I'll be, now I don't use them for live streaming, but I will be like in a meeting and my phone will ring. And even if I decline the call, it'll connect over to my phone, and suddenly I can't hear the meeting I'm in.
That exactly happened when we were on this call earlier, and even though I've turned my phone onto silent and turned off, it's still somehow got a call through. The ones I'm using, which are the MEEs, I can actually probably do this. I can actually take the driver comes off, so the actual driver comes off, and then you put the driver onto the cable, so you can actually connect it on. So I've got the driver can do that, and the reason for that also is that if you blow the drivers. And there are different types of drivers available for you, so that it depends on what your music tastes and requirements are. So if you're a drummer or a bassist, you get a different set of drivers to people who are there. And there are a lot of other options available to it that enable you to get molded in ears for it as well. So that works out really well.
And I like what John said here, that it amazes him that not everybody has headphones, and he can't tell you how many of his guests don't own a pair. And that's the thing is, when you're prepping your guests, have like a little checklist and questions. Now, I don't go through quite as much prep with my guests because my guests are all in the live streaming industry. But if you're bringing on guests that isn't what they do all the time, have a checklist and a little prep thing. And if they don't have a pair of headphones, say, I really need you to go down to Walmart, Target, wherever you buy your things, and just get even an inexpensive pair so they're plugged in, so you don't get the feedback issues.
Or hopefully, if they've got one of the big red buses or whatever the tour guide is for your local city, just go on the tour. They give them to you free. And just take those headphones, because that's all you need.
I don't live
we're not actually after, because the argument, I have this all the time. So I'm not, unlike you, Julie, I'm not as fortunate. Most of my guests, most of the people we do broadcasts for, in other industries, and we struggle every time. But what we've actually found the easiest thing now is we're starting to ship them out. We will say to them, and we'll say to them, are you on wired or wireless? I'm on wireless, but I'm really close to the router. Right, we'll just send you a cable, and we'll send you a connector. We'll send you a USB connector for your Mac.
I have a friend.
But it never breaks up. It says, no, you never hear you. That's the point. You never ever hear or see what you look like on the other end. And as I said to you when I did the tests earlier, when you heard, I'll go back. This shouldn't break. But we'll just try. This bit shouldn't break. That is the MacBook Pro microphone. And if you ask MacBook Pro, if you ask me what MacBook Pro is, that is a $4,000 MacBook Pro that's 18 months old. And the reason the fan is going so mad is because the battery is dying. But that's another matter. But that is the most expensive microphone that Apple have put into a MacBook.
Yeah. Well,
that's the most expensive one.
It looks like we have hit the top of the hour, and we definitely don't want to keep going too long. We really want to keep these shows within an hour. Gosh, we could talk for another probably 2 hours easily on this topic and keep going. But it just means we'll have to have you back on again, Leo.
Or Christian does his show on Saturdays, or has been doing a show on Saturdays, which he, go and hit him up on there, because that's a great show talking about this and actually doing it in real time. And there's a number of other shows that you guys run, which are just absolutely brilliant. So this experience is out there. The experience is out there also for people who are using StreamYard. I mean, I'm a big member of the StreamYard community. Hence, thank you very much for the mug. There is to put this into perspective for those of you who are starting this journey or where you are on this journey, this time last year, as I said, I was doing in-person events, and I had my own show on StreamYard for about 3 months before that. So I'd been using it for a while, but I was still pretty new on this. My microphone at the time when I was doing stuff this time last year was basically the MacBook. The camera wasn't this one that I'm on at the moment. It was just a Logitech. And now I'm sitting on these things and I'm doing these things. And I'm loving it. So if you're sitting there on this journey saying, I need to be this level, you can't get there today. You just move one step at a time. You just move one part along the road, and you get the journey and you get the experience and you get a better quality as you move along and you learn from it.
That's excellent. We want to do a quick giveaway before we close it down. And so I'm going to pull this up real quick.
What's the giveaway for?
We are giving away
Love StreamYard. It's the Love StreamYard.
So put in the comments, #Love StreamYard. And Leo, we're going to let you randomly choose somebody to win the mug today. So make sure you put that in the comments. While you're putting that in the comments, we'll kind of give you a quick rundown. So tomorrow we have Christian's show, StreamYard reviews.
Actually, small correction on that.
Yep.
Tomorrow we're doing YouTube channel reviews.
Oh.
So if somebody has a YouTube channel and you want to have, and actually, so I'm actually getting the week off actually. So we have Daniel Batal and Dean Emin. They're doing YouTube channel reviews. So if you happen to have a YouTube channel, it's a fantastic show, I have to say, because they'll look at your channel and they don't know anything about your channel, and they say, hey, you know what, put it in the comments. They bring it up, and then they'll give their initial impression, like, hey, I don't really know what this is about. Maybe the channel art needs to be changed. They talk about the importance of changing your shelf on YouTube. So like showing if you have live streams coming up, not showing necessarily like, hey, here's the last video I uploaded. So you crafting the experience. That's tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what other shows do we have after that, Julie?
We have Sunday, we have the Town Hall, and that is at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Monday, we have my show, Livestream Impact, and that will be at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Tuesday, we have Tech Talks with Daniel at, I believe that was 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm having to convert the time zones. I'm Central Time. So. Thursday evening, we have StreamYard Spotlight with Dana and Kelsey, and that is at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, I believe, or 8 p.m. I'd have to double check that. And then next week, we will not be on live Learn with StreamYard. Instead, we will have Coffee with the Ducks. And Coffee with the Ducks is where you can get to know one of our fabulous StreamYard employees. So a long lineup of shows for you in the next week. So Leo, would you like to pick a winner?
I have. I've just picked somebody, and it is Corinne Elizabeth King.
Okay. Well, email us at marketing@streamyard.com, and we will get that sent out to you. I was trying to find their little hashtag.
603. So for me, it's 603. It'll be whatever 03 for you. Okay. Don't you just love the fact now it's got the times on there? What a difference that made. That little thing.
So, Corinne, email us at marketing@streamyard.com, and we will get your mug mailed out to you.
Fantastic. This has been just an amazing show. I got to say, I really like James's comment real quick here while we wrap things up. You know, loves the shows, but this is the best one. And I have to say, Leo, I always enjoy chatting with you because you always have just so much insight to share, in this case, about how to improve your sound. So I want to encourage everyone, you know, if you have any questions, leave them on the YouTube video, or if you're watching over in the Facebook group, leave that there as well. We're going to be back in 2 weeks, right, Julie? 2 weeks. And we've got a really good topic. Actually, we're going to be discussing then. We're tossing around a couple, but this one I think is going to go back to the video side. For those who have a smartphone, I think we're going to have a good session for you. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And again, Leo Mindel, thanks a lot for joining us for this week's episode of Learn with StreamYard.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
It's been great to be here. And Julie, your pictures also, I took all your hits for the bad stuff, and now your picture and everything has sorted itself out. The
Oh,
storms
yay.
have gone.
Yeah, it looks like the storms are starting to move out. They'll be back later today.
Fantastic. So thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone. Remember, be sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well if you're on YouTube, so you get notified about all those shows that Julie was listing. We have quite a number of them. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.